I want to start with the scenario that I think is going to feel painfully familiar to a lot of people listening.
Okay.
You've put in the hours, you've memorized the vocabulary lists, you've drilled grammar until you can do it in your sleep, and you pass the written exams, no problem.
Right, you're acing the test.
But then you walk into a real meeting,
Yeah.
or you're at a dinner party with native speakers, and you freeze.
It's the robot phase. That's what I call it.
Okay.
It's that, frustrating gap where you're technically correct, you're grammatically perfect, but you still sound like you're reading from a textbook.
Exactly. You're not connecting.
No, not at all.
You're transmitting information, but you aren't really conversing. And usually the missing link isn't some super complex vocabulary word. It's the imagery. It's the idioms.
Yes.
So today we're doing a deep dive into this guide called 25 Essential English Idioms, Part 1.
And what I appreciate about this specific guide and why I think it's worth our time is that it doesn't just give you a list to memorize. It focuses on business and daily life, which is where most of us live, but it uses this method called visual equations.
Right, the visual equations. I have to admit, when I first saw that on the slides, I thought, oh no, math.
Yeah, it sounds a little intimidating, but it's actually much more about mental models.
Okay, so not algebra.
Not at all. It's about decoding the logic behind the phrase. Yeah, idioms can seem so random. Why are we talking about snow in an office or feet indoors?
Right.
The visual equation breaks it down. It gives you a literal image plus a figurative meaning. So it turns the phrase into a picture you can see in your head, which makes it much harder to forget.
So our mission today is to decode these equations. We're going to follow the roadmap laid out in the source material, which divides our professional lives into 3 zones. First, the hustle. Getting the work done. Second, the ledger, all about money. And third, the vibe, managing your attitude and personality.
It's a really logical progression.
Yeah.
You start your career, you manage your money, and then you shape who you are professionally.
So let's not waste any time. Let's jump straight into section 1, the hustle.
The hustle. This is all about work, career, and just the sheer effort of it all.
And the first idiom here is one you hear constantly in career advice, on LinkedIn, everywhere. Get your foot in the door.
It is, the bedrock idiom of career building. But let's look at the visual equation from the notes because it paints a slightly more aggressive picture than we usually think of.
Yeah, let's unpack that. The literal image on the slide, it shows a shiny leather shoe physically jammed into a doorway, stopping the door from slamming shut.
Right.
When you look at it literally, it's actually kind of rude. You're forcing an opening.
That's a crucial observation. The door is a barrier. And in the business world, that barrier is the gatekeeper, the hiring manager, the competitive market, an exclusive network.
So the door's natural state is closed.
Exactly. The default is closed. By wedging your foot in there, you are physically preventing exclusion. You're insisting on being in the room.
And then on the other side of the equation, the figurative image is much calmer. It's a woman sitting at a desk looking productive.
So the math is get plus foot plus door equals starting opportunity.
But notice it says starting opportunity. That's the key part.
That's the nuance. Getting your foot in the door doesn't mean you're suddenly the CEO. It just means you have gained access. The definition here is taking a first step, often a low-level one, just to get into that ecosystem.
The source gives a specific example that really highlights this trade-off, the unpaid internship.
Oh, the classic example. Financially, an unpaid internship, it might not make any sense. You could even be losing money, but strategically, it's a pure foot-in-the-door move.
You're not there for the paycheck.
No, you're there because once you're inside that building, you have access to information, to people that you just cannot get from the sidewalk.
It's about proximity. You can't get promoted if you aren't even in the building.
Precisely. You sacrifice short-term comfort for that long-term access.
Okay, so you've wedged your shoe in, you've pushed past the gatekeeper, you have the job, but then reality sets in. And that brings us to the second idiom in the hustle, which describes a feeling I think we've both had recently. Snowed under.
Ah, yes. This is such a vivid, almost tactile idiom. Even if you've never seen snow, you get the physics of this image.
The literal image here is a person in a winter coat, and they are deep in a snowbank. You can only see their head, maybe one arm. They are completely immobilized.
And the figurative image mirrors that perfectly. It's an office worker. But instead of snow, what's burying them?
Paper. Just stacks of files, phones ringing off the hook, emails piling up. They look totally frantic.
The equation is snowed plus under equals overwhelmed. Now, why snow? I mean, why not say, I'm drowning in work or I'm buried?
Drowning feels a bit more fatal, doesn't it? Like, if you're drowning, you're dying.
Exactly. Drowning implies panic and failure. Buried sounds like you're already gone. But snowed under, it implies this heavy, muffling weight. It's a weather event. It happened to you.
Oh, that's interesting. The fact that it happened to you, it feels external.
Yes.
Okay.
If I say I'm burned out, that's internal. My own energy is gone. But if I say I'm snowed under, I'm commenting on the environment. The requests are just coming in too fast. It's a really useful distinction.
The example in the source is so practical. I can't come to dinner. I am completely snowed under with work.
And this is a great social tool. It's a very polite way to say no. You aren't saying, I don't want to see you.
Right.
You're saying, I am currently trapped under a blizzard of responsibility. It frames the rejection as a lack of capacity, not a lack of desire.
It manages expectations. I'm not ignoring your email. I'm just digging myself out of this snowbank.
Exactly. It buys you time and a little bit of sympathy.
Okay, so we've hustled to get in the door. Now we're snowed under with tasks. Hopefully all this hard work translates into something tangible, which leads us to section 2 of our roadmap, the ledger.
Money matters. And I love this section because these idioms are like little time capsules. They take us back to a time before computers, before Excel spreadsheets.
We're talking old school bookkeeping, ink on paper. The guide groups 2 idioms here that are basically twins, maybe evil twins, in the black and in the red.
These are the binary codes of business. You're either one or the other, and understanding this color coding is essential for anyone in an English-speaking corporate world.
Let's start with the positive one, in the black. The visual shows a bottle of black ink, and a graph line is just shooting upwards.
Historically, accountants used black ink to record credits, income, profit, money flowing in. So the visual equation is super simple. Black ink equals profit. If a company is in the black, they're solvent. They have a surplus.
It's funny because in other contexts, black can mean something dark or negative. But in business, black is beautiful, black is safety.
It represents solidity. You have resources. Now, contrast that immediately with its evil twin in the red.
The visual here is the bottle of red ink, and the graph is just crashing down.
Red ink was for debits, losses, debts, money flowing out. So if you are in the red, you owe more than you have.
The source gives us this really punchy memory hook here. Black is wealth, red is warning.
And that just makes sense biologically, doesn't it? Red is nature's warning color. Blood, fire, poisonous berries. We are hardwired to pay attention to red.
So when an accountant opens the ledger and sees red ink, it triggers that same danger response.
It does. So if your boss asks, how are the Q3 numbers? And you say, we are firmly in the black, that's a hero moment.
It's a relief. But if you say, we're bleeding red ink.
Oof. It paints a visceral picture of a company that is, wounded.
Okay, so when you are in the red or getting dangerously close to it, that brings us to the next idiom, which describes the daily struggle of managing that money. Make ends meet.
This one is fascinating. It's really a geometry problem if you think about it.
The literal image on the slide is striking. It's a thick rope that's snapped or frayed in the middle. You have 2 ends dangling, and there's a gap between them.
They aren't touching. And the figurative image is an empty wallet. So the equation is make plus ends plus meet equals financial survival. But I want to focus on that verb, make.
It implies force, right? They don't just meet on their own.
Exactly. It implies active, strenuous effort. You have your income on one side, one end of the rope. You have your expenses on the other. And for a lot of people, there's a natural gap.
So to make ends meet, you have to pull and stretch those ends until they just barely touch.
It's not about overlapping them and tying a nice bow. It's just about them touching to complete the circuit. It's survival mode.
The definition here says earning just enough to pay for what you need, not luxury, not savings.
No, we're talking rent, food, keeping the lights on. If the ends don't meet, the rope is broken. That gap is debt.
The example is, it's hard to make ends meet when the rent is high. I feel like that resonates with almost everyone. It captures that constant stress of, will the money last the month?
And when the ends aren't meeting, when that gap gets wider, you have to take action. You have to change your behavior.
Which leads directly to our next idiom, tighten one's belt.
Another very physical metaphor. The literal image is a guy pulling his belt 1 notch tighter. And frankly, he looks like he's lost a little weight.
Right.
And that's the somewhat grim origin. Why do you physically tighten your belt? Because your waist has shrunk. Why has it shrunk? Because you aren't eating as much.
Wow. I always thought of it as just buckling up for a bumpy ride, like in a car. But it's actually about hunger.
Historically, yes, it connects directly to scarcity. The figurative meaning is broader now, it just means spend less. But the core idea is austerity. You're voluntarily restricting your consumption.
The visual equation here shows a piggy bank with a big red Stop sign. No shopping bags, no fancy coffees.
The math is tighten plus belt equals spend less. It's a reactive measure. You don't tighten your belt when you're in the black. You do it when inflation hits or you lose a client.
The source actually connects this to inflation specifically. Due to inflation, many families have had to tighten their belts.
And it's a great example of how these idioms all connect. Because costs are up, it's harder to make ends meet, so families have to tighten their belts to avoid going in the red.
It's a whole narrative of financial stress in just 3 phrases.
It is. But, we can't always control the economy or the workload. What we can control is how we react.
That is a perfect segue into section 3.
The vibe.
The vibe. This is all about personality, attitude, and emotional intelligence.
And the first idiom here feels like the antidote to all the stress we just talked about. Go with the flow.
I love the visual for this one. It's so calming compared to snapping ropes and red ink.
It shows a single green leaf just floating down a winding river.
Now think about that leaf. Is it swimming? Is it trying to fight the current? No, it's just surrendering. It's letting the water take it wherever it's going.
The equation is go plus flow equals relaxed acceptance. And in a business context, this is a very high-level soft skill. It's adaptability.
The figurative image is a happy hiker at a crossroads, just shrugging his shoulders. He doesn't seem worried.
It means accepting a situation instead of trying to control it. If you're snowed under and your computer crashes, you have 2 choices. You can explode or you can go with the flow.
The example is about travel. We don't have a strict itinerary, we'll just go with the flow. It implies trust, doesn't it? Trust that things will work out.
Or at least the realization that fighting the current is just a waste of energy.
Okay, so being relaxed is great, but you can't say yes to everything. You have to set boundaries. And the British have given us the absolute masterpiece of polite rejection for this.
Ah, yes. Not my cup of tea.
The visual is a fancy floral teacup on a saucer, and next to it, a guy is politely holding up his hand to refuse an opera ticket.
This is the ultimate diplomatic tool. The equation is cup plus tea equals not interested.
Mm-hmm.
But the magic is in how it works. It makes the rejection subjective.
Right. If I say, this report is boring or opera is terrible, I'm stating it like a fact. I'm insulting the thing itself.
Exactly. But if I say opera isn't really my cup of tea, I'm making it about me. I'm saying the opera is fine, but my personal taste just doesn't align with it.
It softens the blow. It removes the judgment.
It lets you decline something without burning a bridge. Thanks for the invite to karaoke, but singing in public just isn't my cup of tea.
Sounds so much better than I would rather die than sing in front of you.
Significantly better for workplace harmony, yes.
We have one final idiom in the vibe section. It was tucked away in the review grid in the notes, but I think it's crucial, especially for leadership. Down to earth.
Down to earth. The source gives us the translation, ping yi jin ren, which implies being accessible or easy to approach.
If someone is down to earth, they aren't floating up in the clouds with a massive ego. They're not snowed under by their own importance.
They're grounded. Gravity applies to them, just like everyone else. In a leader, this is gold. It means they're realistic, humble, and you can actually talk to them without being scared.
So looking at the vibe as a whole, you want to be down to earth, able to go with the flow when plans change, but confident enough to say, not my cup of tea when something doesn't fit.
That is a pretty solid recipe for a sustainable career.
So we've covered a lot of ground, we've done the hustle, we've balanced the ledger, and we've checked the vibe. But as we always say, idioms don't exist in a vacuum.
No, they happen in stories.
Yeah.
And the source material ends with a final challenge, a little narrative about a character named Alex. And I love this because it forces us to put everything together.
Let's walk through Alex's story. I'll read the sentence with the blank, and let's see if we and you, listening, can fill it in with the right idiom.
Let's do it.
Okay, scene 1. Alex is young, he's ambitious. Alex wanted to work in finance to start his career.
He needs to break in. He needs to pry that barrier open. He wants to get his foot in the door.
Right. But be careful what you wish for. But soon he was too busy.
The files are piling up. The blizzard has started. He was snowed under.
And despite working so hard, the money wasn't great. He had to spend less because his bank account was losing money.
Okay, a double whammy there. First, the reactive measure. He has to restrict his spending, so he had to. Tighten his belt.
And why?
Because the ink color in his ledger was all wrong. He was in the red.
And finally, the realization hits. He eventually realized finance was not his interest.
It wasn't his passion. He politely declined the whole industry. It was not his cup of tea.
Poor Alex, he crashed and burned.
Or he successfully pivoted to something better. But look at the density of information there. With those 5 idioms, we told a complete story about ambition, stress, financial hardship, and self-realization in about 30 seconds.
That really is the power of idioms, isn't it? They're like zip files for meaning. You unzip them and a whole picture pops out.
That's a great analogy. They convey culture and emotional nuance instantly. When you use them correctly, you stop sounding like an outsider translating in their head.
And you start sounding like a colleague.
Exactly.
So before we wrap up, let's do a quick rapid fire, the quick check from the notes, just to lock these in. I'll give you the situation, you give me the idiom.
Alrighty.
Situation 1. The company's annual report is out, profits are up 20%, bonuses for everyone.
We are celebrating because we are strictly in the black.
Situation 2. I have 50 reports to finish by tomorrow, my inbox is exploding, and I haven't eaten lunch.
You, my friend, are snowed under.
Situation 3. The price of groceries just doubled, rent went up, but my salary stayed exactly the same.
Time for some austerity. I have to tighten my belt.
And finally, I invited you to go skydiving this weekend, but you're terrified of heights.
I would say that is very kind of you, but jumping out of a perfectly good airplane is really not my cup of tea.
See, once you get the visual equation, the logic behind it, you don't have to memorize it. You just see the picture.
The image triggers the meaning. It becomes automatic.
So here's our challenge to you, the listener. We don't want you to just listen and nod. We want you to be like the foot in the door guy. Take action.
Pick one. Just one idiom from today's deep dive, maybe tomorrow at work. Instead of saying I'm so busy, try saying I'm a bit snowed under.
Or if you're looking at a budget, ask, are we in the black on this project?
Yes. Watch the reaction. You'll see that little flicker of recognition. You'll sound more natural, more down to earth.
And that is the first step to real fluency. You're building the vibe. The source ends with a slide that says, practice makes perfect, showing all these different people just chatting.
And that's the goal, connection. Language is for connecting with people, not just passing exams.
Thanks for taking this deep dive into the visual side of English with us.
Always a pleasure. Keep those belts tightened and your feet in the doors.
We'll catch you in the next deep dive.